بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. It is Wednesday, the 1st of June 2022, and in our series Reflections on the Holy Quran, this is broadcast number 320. And today we will start looking at the words used in chapter 2, Al-Baqarah, verse 102 of the Holy Quran. So this is part 1 of that. It's a long verse and it will take perhaps 20 broadcasts to cover all the words. But let's start. These broadcasts are brought to you by LASER, Lahore Ahmadiyya School for Education in Islam. And it's a department of Ahmadiyya Manishayat Islam of Lahore. Just to remind you that the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, the Ahmadiyya organization, was established by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib of Qadian. And he taught us that although other people say that a prophet will come after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, this is incorrect, because the Quran says that the Holy Prophet was Khatamun Nabiyyin. And the Holy Prophet explained that by saying, La Nabiyya Ba'di, there is no prophet after me. So now, no prophet, old or new, can come. Hazrat Sahib said that in accordance with the Hadith, he was the Mujaddid, one of them. There were many others before him. So he had come to defend Islam. And he said that other Hadiths speak of a Messiah and Mahdi, and he was the Mujaddid who bore those titles of Messiah and Mahdi. He also explained to Muslims that they're too hasty in calling each other heretics and kafirs and so on. The Holy Prophet said that if one reciter of the kalima says to another reciter of the kalima that you're not a Muslim, you're a heretic, then it's the person saying it who's the heretic. Just think about these words of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that people say that some prophetic revelation is missing from the Holy Quran, and that some prophetic revelation which is in the Holy Quran is abrogated, cancelled. He said this can't be right, because God says in the Holy Quran that I have revealed it and I'm a guardian over it. So how can something over which God is, Allah is keeping watch, have parts of it which are missing, or have in it something which needs to be abrogated? And Hazrat Sahib taught that Jihad is a fundamental duty of every single Muslim. And we need to turn to the Holy Prophet's definition of jihad, not to anyone else's. And the Holy Prophet said, as he returned from fighting, that Muslims were returning from the minor jihad to the major jihad, from jihad-e-asghar to jihad-e-akbar. And then he went on to define jihad-e-akbar. And he said that is jihad bin nafs, a struggle with your own self, your own inner desires. That is jihad-e-akbar. So we should remember that. So with that, let us go to the verse that we're going to start looking at today. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It's a very long verse. So what I'll do is I'll just recite the first phrase and the part that has the words that we're going to discuss. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. And they follow what the devils fabricated against the kingdom of Solomon. So today we are going to look at وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا and tatlu. So let me now turn to my notes on the computer. So the first one is the tabawu, and that has 3 segments. First, we have wa, which is a connecting word, a conjunction, and then at the end, wa and hamza are pronouns, and there's a verb in the middle. And its root is ta, ba, and ain. And in the Holy Quran, we find 9 words which are made from this root. And we find them in the Holy Quran 172 times. 136 times as ittaba'a. And 15 times as attaba'a. No, that's wrong. 15 times as atba'a. Sorry, I mispronounced that. Atba'a. And 9 times as tabi'a. And if we look at the meanings, what we find is basically you can say it means to follow, to walk in the footsteps of someone. So it says tabi'ahu wattaba'ahu. It means to follow in the footsteps of someone, and it stands for, many times it actually stands for obedience. So, and the example is in chapter 2, verse 38. The Holy Quran says, فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Now, literally you can say, those who follow me. Is God saying, those who follow me. But obviously we know that it means those who follow my guidance. Then there'll be no fear for them and no grief. Again, in chapter 36, verses 20 and 21, it says, قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُوا الْمُرْسَلِينَ اتَّبِعُوا مَنْ لَا يَسْأَلُكُمْ أَجْرًا. O people, walk behind mursals, messengers, and they want nothing from you, but they're walking on the right path. So that means that you obey what the prophets and messengers of Allah tell you to do. You do that. Fama nittaba'a hudai. Chapter 20, verse 123. The person who follows me. It doesn't mean to say that, you are physically following Allah or you are physically following the Holy Prophet Muhammad. But the one who follows the guidance that is being given. Ittabi'u ma unzila ilaykum min rabbikum. Chapter 7, verse 3. O people, follow the book that has been revealed to you from your Lord, from your Rabb. So obviously here, it doesn't mean physically follow the book, but the guidance that's in the book. And we get this particularly in relation to things like, the highway code, and if you're trying to pass your driving test, you're given a book that you have to read to learn the rules of the road and so on. And if you do something wrong, your driving instructor would say, follow the book. And that means do what the book says. And then, of course, this verse that they follow what the devils did. In another place, chapter 2, verse 168, it says, فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Don't follow the devil. It means don't listen to him. Don't follow the guidance that he gives. And here's they're all important, all verses of the Holy Quran. But there's one that it's important to apply to ourselves. Chapter 38, verse 26. وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَايَ فَيُزِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And don't follow your desires, because they take you away from God's path. So you can see that although it says follow, it doesn't necessarily mean that you literally follow. But this, as far as Islam is concerned, you see, you have two types of religions. One recommends that you leave the world and you go and live in a jungle all on your own, and you contemplate, and that way you wouldn't do anything wrong. Of course you wouldn't do anything wrong, because you're living in jungle. If something happens, you don't need to lie to anyone or be dishonest with anyone or usurp anyone's rights, because there's no one else there. But that's not what Islam is all about. Islam says you live in a society. You live among people. And then, when you find that the truth is going to be harmful for you or your family, you still speak the truth. Where you find that being honest might mean that you make a loss as far as money is concerned, you're still honest. And that is the whole point. The man living in the jungle, there is no temptation. Who is he going to lie to? Who is he going to defraud? No one. But there are two sides of it. There's the individual, but the other side is that collectively Muslims should establish a society, a structure, which is Islamic. And that does not mean to say that everyone is forced, because the Quran says, La ikraha fid din. There's no compulsion in religion. So there's no compulsion in, you can't force a non-Muslim to become a Muslim, and you can't force a Muslim to, I don't know, say prayers 5 times a day or whatever. But in general, the structure should be that people want to do it. And that's the point. That's the difference between atba and itaat. They're both obedience. But if it's itaat, then what it means is that you're forced by law to do something. Like in England, it's right-hand drive, and the law says you'll drive on this side of the road. If you don't and you have an accident, then you're in big trouble. So you obey the law. But itba has the significance that you do something because someone, i.e. Allah, has asked you to do it. There's no compulsion on you. No one is going to send you to jail if you don't do it. But you do it because you love Allah, and Allah has said you must do it. So you follow those rules. Why? Because you love Allah. Not because you're scared of being put in prison or being lashed or fined, etc., etc. So let's go to the next word, which is easy. ma. Well, that just means what? It's a relative pronoun meaning what? So there's not a lot more to say about that. And then the next word, tatlu. Its root is ta, lam, va. And there are 3 words made from it. And in total, they occur in the Holy Quran 63 times. 61 times as tala, and once as tilawat, and once as taliyat. Taliyat. And that means to read or recite. Read, recite, recitation, etc. So let me turn the pages back to where the notes start. Okay. So it means, literally it means to follow someone so closely that nothing can come between you and what you follow. So, and that's can be done physically. And it does mean obeying the rules. And obeying the rules, I mean, kirat. Kirat means to recite the Holy Quran. But you can recite it parrot fashion. There's a parrot that recites parts of the Holy Quran beautifully. But it doesn't understand anything. And unfortunately, that is how we recite it. Now, let's look at the 2 things. This following can be physical. For example, in chapter 91, verse 2, the Holy Quran says, Wal kamari iza talaha, by the moon, which follows the sun. So sun is sort of, in a way, given greater dignity, greater status than the moon, because moon is following it. And there's another reason. In chapter 10, verse 5, it says, Jala Shamsa Daya Anwal Pamara Nura. Now here, for Shams, the sun, the word Diya is used. And for Qamar, the moon, the word Noor is used. And the significance is that Diya is something's original light. And it's very bright. And Noor is not original light. This is like reflected light. And it's not as bright as sun's light, as they are. And we can see this in the sun and the moon. During the day, the sun comes out and it's so bright. And at night, the moon comes out and it's not so bright. So there actually has in it the meaning of Noor, but Noor doesn't have in it the significance of there. And you see, Quran also says in chapter, so that is an example of physically following something. Now, the Quran also says, Yatluna ayatillah, and they recite, they do the talawat of ayatillah, God's revelation, God's verses. So, sometimes this ittilawatu, it's referred to God's revealed books and their obedience to them, following them. And so we can have obedience in the sense of just reading, but then also understanding the commands of what you're reading, and then putting it into practice. But tilawat is reserved for the Holy Quran. You don't say, like, I got your letter and I did. It's tilawat. It's restricted to the Holy Quran. So, chapter 29, verse 50. Yes, chapter 29, verse 51 says, Avalam yakfihim anna anzalna alaykal kitaba yutla alayhim. Isn't it sufficient for people that we reveal the book to them, which is read out to them? Or you can see, it can simply mean reading as well. For example, chapter 8, verse 2, it says, وَإِذَا تُلَيْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. And when its verses are recited to them, their faith increases. So that means when people hear these verses and so on. So, but the Holy Prophet, you see, God says that, he recites to you my messages, my ayat. But it also says that he purifies you. And that purification is actually developing you spiritually. And what the tilawat actually really stands for is that the structure that God wants, the system that the God wants for humanity to live by, we actually try and put that into effect practically. If you think that, just reciting the Quran, as we see in many places, boys are sitting there shaking back and forth and reciting the Holy Quran very loudly, and they don't understand a word of it. And if you think, that's it, job done, then you're deluding yourself. First, it's reading the Quran, then it's trying to understand the Holy Quran, and then having understood it, then put it into practice in your lives. It should be best if there is an Islamic system in which everyone does that. And you see, Hazrat Abu Bakr and Hazrat Umar and these people, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, they understood what was required. Hazrat Abu Bakr, in his first speech, he said that the strong are weak and the weak are strong. Why? Because he said, I will not rest until I make sure that the weak can exercise the rights that God has given him, that are due to him, even if I have to take them from the powerful and give them to the weak. But this is not what we see happening in the so-called Islamic countries. A rich man grabs a poor person's property, and no one listens to the poor person. If he goes to court, it's going to cost tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, and the matter is going to drag on for years. Which poor person has the resources to do that? Is he going to take time off work and lose money to attend court hearings? No. So he's just going to give up. So how can any society which operates in that way at the same time pretend that it's an Islamic society? It's a society consisting of people, a majority of whom say that they are Muslims. That is all. But that does not make it an Islamic society. The fundamental requirement of an Islamic society is that every single person in it is treated equally, and they have their rights, and they can go and demand those rights, and they get justice, not in years or months, but within weeks. With that, I take my leave of you with a prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep the whole humanity safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and